Hi, this is Dr. Gregory Sadler. I'm a professor of philosophy and the president and founder of an educational consulting company called Reason.io, where we put philosophy into practice. I've studied and taught philosophy for over 20 years, and I find that many people run into difficulties reading classic philosophical texts. Sometimes it's the way things are said or how the text is structured. But the concepts themselves are not always that complicated, and that's where I come in. To help students and lifelong learners, I've been producing longer lecture videos and posting them to YouTube. Many viewers say they find them useful. What you're currently watching is part of a new series of shorter videos, each of them focused on one core concept from an important philosophical text. I hope you find it useful as well. Within his treatise on the happy life, more towards the end than in the beginning, Seneca is going to respond in some very thoughtful and sustained ways to the kinds of accusations that people made in his time and still continue to make in the present. Ooh, you philosophers, in particular you Stoics, you don't actually live up to what it is that you claim to be your ideals. And Seneca's, one easy response to this is, I'm not the sage. I'm not the wise person. I'm not perfect. I'm not finished. But he goes into a lot more depth and detail in ways that I think can be quite helpful to look at and perhaps even liberating. If you've been troubled by similar worries or other people making complaints and that confuses you, this might turn out to be quite helpful. And he's going to make a distinction between having actually attained wisdom, which he says, I haven't, reaching the pinnacle of virtue, and being somebody who is striving for it. What the Stoics in general, and actually more broadly speaking, people in ancient philosophy, called the people making progress. So prokopton in Greek, meaning somebody who is making some sort of steps towards, some sort of strides towards virtue, proficientes in Latin. And Seneca is going to talk first, this is in chapter 16, saying that a person who strives towards virtue, somebody who's actually making some progress, tendit in Latin, even if they are getting there, they're on the way, processit, right? They're striving, they're making some lasting progress. They still need to be careful because they're not already there. They need some, what's translated as leniency, indulgentia, right? Indulgence is the word in English that comes from that, from fortune. What does it mean to have leniency from fortune? External goods, things that the Stoics say are not good in themselves and actually are indifference, but preferred indifference, are needed for people who aren't all the way there. He says, why? Because they're struggling amid human affairs until they have undone that knot and every mortal bond. And then here's a big important question. Well, if you're not already there, if you haven't made it to virtue, if you're not the wise person, then isn't it all equally vicious crap? And the Stoics did say things like that. Seneca here is going to say there is a difference. Others are shackled, trussed up, or even tied on a rack. He who has advanced to higher things and raised himself aloft is tugging at a loosened chain. Still a chain, but a loosened chain. Not yet free, but already as if free. So, Seneca's kind of two minds about whether you can make progress. In some of his letters, he's a little bit less optimistic about this, but On the Happy Life, he seems to be quite optimistic about this. And then he rattles off, this is in part 17, a whole litany of complaints that people make. So, those who bark at philosophy say what they always say. What are they always saying? Why do you speak more bravely than you live? Why do you lower your voice for someone of higher rank and treat money as a necessary resource for you? So social status, money. You allow yourself to be disturbed by a loss and shed tears when you hear that your wife or your friend has died. Okay, emotional issues. You look to your reputation. You let yourself be touched by spiteful words. Why is your country estate more cultivated than natural use requires? Why do you not dine in accordance with your own prescriptions? Why is your furniture so extravagant? Why is wine consumed at your house of older vintage than you are? Why is there gold everywhere? Why have trees been planted? And it goes on and on and on. You can read through these. And Seneca says, if you're going to complain about those things, why don't you add a couple more complaints? Why don't you say, why do you have property overseas? Why do you have more than you're aware of? Why are you so disgracefully negligent that you do not know even a few of your slaves? Or so disgracefully luxurious you have too many for your memory? And then he says, I'll help your attacks, and I'll throw more charges at myself than you can think of. I've got problems, You can complain about these sorts of things. I'm aware of them. And he says, for now I'll make this reply to you. I'm not wise. And just to nourish your ill will, malevolencia, right? Literally an evil will, I'm not going to be wise. I'm not going to jump through a bunch of hoops and try to make progress go quicker than it is just to satisfy some bitter, mean-spirited person like you. That would be insane. So he says, demand for me not that I am equal to my best or the best, but that I'm better than the bad. And he says, it's enough for me to subtract something from my vices each day and chastise my own mistakes. I have not yet arrived at good health, nor will I indeed ever arrive. But compared with you, I am a runner when it comes to speed, right? I'm saying these things not on my behalf because I'm still deeply mired in vices, but on behalf of somebody who's accomplished something. So Seneca is saying, I haven't even made that much progress, but there are people who are making progress. They're not yet virtuous in the full sense, but they are on the right way. And that's not nothing, right? So he's going to go on a little bit further. This is section 18. And people, how often does this come up? You speak in one way and live in another. Aliter loquores, you talk the talk. Aliter vivis, you don't live the living, you don't walk the walk, you could say, right? And so what is Seneca's response? Hey, not a new charge, same accusation. People have made that against Plato. They made it against Epicurus. They made it against Zeno, founder of the Stoic school. They made it against Cato, one of the people who perhaps Seneca thinks is the best representative of the Stoic sage. Demetrius, the cynic, who we don't actually know that much about. People will say stuff like this about everybody. Why? Because they're resentful, because they love to nitpick, because they're miserable bastards, right? He's going to say not quite exactly those words, but things quite similar to that later on. And he says, not even that venom with which you spatter others, with which you kill yourself, will hinder me from praising the life. Not that I live, but that I know I ought to live, or from worshiping virtue and crawling after it from a huge distance behind. And, he's going to follow this up by telling us that all of these people, maybe they don't completely live up to what they say, but they're saying not how they are living themselves, but about how they ought to live. And they're providing us with models not just by their life, which, is going to be beset with contradictions and a bit deficient, but by the ideas that they are putting forward. Then he's going to follow this up in 20 by looking at this great phrase, philosophers don't deliver on what they say, praestant, right? Another word for that is they don't provide what they talk about. Again, he's using this loquor, right? So Seneca says, so what? They deliver on much, multa, of what they say. It's better than nothing, right? Sure, they're not giving you 100%, but if they give you 80%, that's pretty darn good, isn't it? And so he says, of which they have a morally good conception, honesta mente concipitur, right? They actually have some idea about how to live a good life. If they're not measuring up perfectly to it, they're still doing something. And he says, if only they did accomplish things equal to their words, what could be happier for them? In the meantime, there's no good grounds for you to scorn their good words or their hearts full of good thoughts. Their undertaking of wholesome studies deserves praise, even if they did not achieve their goal. And he says, what's surprising if having entered on a steep path, they don't arrive at the top? If you're a man, those who undertake great things, even if they fall, deserve your admiration. So instead of being sour and complaining about this sort of thing and scorning their good words or efforts, recognize and praise them. That would be the proper response. Maybe also saying, oh man, I'm falling short compared to Plato or Zeno or Demetrius or maybe even Seneca, right? Seneca, of course, would say, no, I'm not particularly good. So, this is really quite important. And he goes on a little bit later and he says, listen, those who actually propose good things and who will them, volet, right? Trying to do them, tempt a bit, these people are journeying towards the gods. Meaning that they are making progress towards actual virtue, towards the highest good, towards happiness. It's ridiculous for you to complain that they're not already there, particularly when you look at yourself. And so here's a prime example of this that we'll look at a little bit in greater depth separately. He says, stop forbidding philosophers to have money. It's not money that makes a person bad. It's how they desire it, how they acquire it, what they do with their money. It's possible to be a philosopher and actually have money. That's not by itself a bad thing. Later on, he's going to say, charge Plato with having sought money, Aristotle with having received it, Democritus for having neglected it, Epicurus for having consumed it, right? Instead of doing that, why don't you look at your own bad character and conscience and, think about how you could improve that? And he then says, listen, there's no reason to dismiss what these philosophers actually say rightly. And there's a number of different ways in which he talks about them saying it rightly. Morally, honesta, bravely, fortitude, and spiritedly by those who are eager for wisdom. And then he says, keep in mind as well, there's a big difference between those who are eager for wisdom and those who are actually attaining it. Big difference. But there's also a big difference between those who don't yet have wisdom but are eager for it, who recognize its goodness, and those who just sit in the back and complain, or who have all sorts of vices and are resentful of anybody who's seeking it out, right? He says the people who are eager for wisdom will tell you, I say the best, but I'm still tossed amid many bad things. It's not the case that you can hold me to my rule. I am making myself at this very moment. I'm shaping myself and raising myself up to the level of a huge example. If I advance as far as I've proposed, then demand that my actions correspond to my words. So it's kind of unfair for you to be complaining about a Stoic who is making progress, but who definitely hasn't arrived at the full apex of that progress, as if they're being judged, they're being measured by you, who haven't attained any progress, by those criteria. They know that they're failing, right? They don't need you sitting in the background to tell them, ooh, you're not living up to everything. What about those who actually have achieved it, he says, if they were around, what would they say to you? Don't allow yourself to pass judgment on your betters. It's already turned out for me, I'm displeasing to bad people, a sign that I am on the right path, Seneca says. I'm not one of those wise people. I'm not one of those virtuous people. But the mere fact that people are complaining about me when I'm making progress and saying, what a hypocrite, shows that I'm actually making progress, right? Because otherwise they wouldn't be so concerned with that. And Seneca is actually going to close this by saying, where do you actually have the time to scrutinize the bad qualities of others and pass judgments about anyone? What business is it of yours what other people are doing? Why don't you take a look at yourself, your own bad circumstances, which penetrate you on every side, some attacking you on the outside, some burning in your insides, right? You haven't gotten yourself to the point where you actually have much to complain about in other people, and that's where your attention seems to be going. So these are some responses that he has to would-be critics, probably reflecting what people around him continually do say, all of which are just as relevant in our own time as they were back in Seneca's ancient Roman period.